I'm with Paul Heinbecker, a senior retired Canadian diplomat who's had assignments such as our ambassador at the UN, ambassador to Germany, and advisor on foreign policy to the Prime Minister. Paul is currently at the Center for International Governance and Innovation and at Laurier University.
Yes.
Paul, the first question about your book, getting back into the game on Canadian foreign policy, is why did you write the book?
That's always a good question, and the answer is 3 points. I wrote the book because I was unhappy with the pessimism that seemed to be accompanying Canadian foreign policy and Canada's prospects. People started talking as though there was a golden age, and that was behind us, and sort of everything from there on was going to be downhill, and I profoundly disagree with that. The second reason I wrote it was because I am disappointed with the foreign policy of the current government, the Harper government, which I think has not until very recently begun to understand how important international relations are, how important foreign policy is, and how important Canada is in this world. You know, what a difference we can make in the interests of everybody else, but in our own interests as well. And the third reason I wrote the book was I wanted to be able to sort of advocate doing better. I think we can do better. I've seen effective foreign policies. I've advised a number of Canadian prime ministers. And I know that it can be done because it has been done. And so that I thought that if we just sort of, I wrote a kind of rallying call. Let's get back in the game. Let's get off the sideline. Let's stop watching the world on a widescreen TV. Let's start playing the game again. Because I think in recent years we've basically gone to the sidelines. We haven't realized how significant we can be, and we tended to take the view that the foreign policy is something that other people do, and that to the extent that we care about it at all, it has to do only with the partisan calculations of the party in power.
It seems that Canadians aren't that intensely interested in foreign policy. You've done what you could. You've written a book that's very, very readable and very topical. But is there why are Canadians not more interested in foreign policy?
Well,
what can be done?
It used to be said that Canadians were interested in foreign policy. It's just that it was American foreign policy that they were interested in, and that I also wanted to deal with that. I think Canadians are interested in the world. I think the evidence is that Canadians are more present in the world now than they have ever been. There are literally millions of Canadians living abroad, working abroad, traveling abroad. But there is at the same time, there's this curious disconnect. There's a kind of an apathy. There's a kind of a self-deprecation. And there's a kind of an idealism. And it all mixes together and produces this particular and peculiar, one might say, kind of Canadian foreign policy. I wanted to be able to assure people that Canada has the assets to succeed. We're not the term middle power drives me crazy. We're not a middle power. There's nothing about Canada that's in the middle. We're a top-tier country. That might be a better way. Or even if you insist, maybe a second-tier country. But we're certainly not middle. Cameroon, El Salvador, those are middle powers. If you look at the IMF or the World Bank or other calculations of GDP, Canada ranks in the top 10 or 11 and will, as far as the eye can see, even if the projections of growth are right, the straight line projections that show China growing, India growing, Brazil growing, and others growing, we still stay in the top tier countries, the top 10 or 15 countries, for as long as anybody can foresee. We'll be among the richest of those countries on a per capita basis for as long as anybody can foresee. So we have the assets. We have an education system. We rank second in the world in terms of the number of people who have tertiary education. Our universities rank us third in the world in terms of quality. And the top 200 universities, the U.S. is first, the U.K. is second. Canada is third in this lineup. If we look at our high school students, a test given every couple of years by the OECD on student achievement, Canadians never rank worse than about third or fourth or fifth or sixth. That we rank in there worldwide, the most advanced countries in the world. We're at the top. We're at the top of all of the G7 countries, and we're at the top of the G8 countries, and we rank with China on education so for the first or second or third position. So we have a strong educational system. We have a very strong economy. We got resources. We're a resource-rich country. The Prime Minister calls us an energy superpower. I'd believe we were a superpower if we were capable of turning off the tap, which so far we're not able to do. But nonetheless, we are a country with enormous economic assets. We have a very strong industrial sector, not as strong as one would like in terms of innovation. Not as strong as one would like in terms of research done. But those are problems that can be fixed by Canadians. We have what the world now regards as the best banking system in the world. We're the envy of much of the world and much of the rich world for the functioning of the Canadian economy. We've had successive governments going all the way back to Mulroney and Chrétien and Martin and Harper, who've put us in a position where we have a very strong standing internationally in economic terms. Our artists are beating the world. Margaret Atwood, for example, is when I was ambassador in Germany, I used to go to the Frankfurt Book Fair, one of the biggest book fairs in the world, and I could see the enormous demand there was for Canadian writing. And if you look at the world is changing. It used to be a two superpower world, and you had your diplomatic scope was from A to B, basically. Now we have a multipolar world, a multicentric world. We got China, we got India, we got Brazil, Russia, the European Union, the United States. This is tailor-made for people with agile diplomacy, and there's no reason. And for a country like Canada, which draws its population from every corner of the world, this multipolar system is right up our alley. So we have the prospects, we have the possibility of great success in this world. We just have to believe ourselves, and we have to have some leadership. That's basically where I faulted the current government, because I thought that they were very domestic oriented. They tended to see every foreign policy issue in terms of what its domestic impact was, rather than what its impact on Canada was, and where the opportunities were. It took us a long time to get started recognizing the importance of China. It took a long time getting started recognizing the importance of India. The Prime Minister has just made his first visit to Brazil in 5 years. We've been slow to recognize how significant the world is for our own prosperity and for our own security. But we're beginning, and I would commend the government for that. But the opportunities are there, the talent is there, the respect of others for Canada is there, so long as we are a bit more circumspect about some of our policies. I think we've gone off the deep end in supporting the Likud positions, whatever they may turn out to be in Israel. I think we need to get back to making international law the basis of our policy in the Middle East, not the notion of who our friends are. A principled foreign policy is going to be based on law, not friendship. So I think that, with a few exceptions, I think that we're beginning to move in the right direction. So I'm very optimistic. There are things we can do. I think we have to do things. We have to come up with a made-in-Canada position on climate change, but it has to be a real one. We have to address the issue. This is not going away, and it's going to be much more expensive to deal with it over the long term if we don't get started now. I think we have prospects on making a difference on arms control and disarmament, one of the big international issues. We have the possibility through the G20 of playing at the big table with the other big countries and making a difference in the world. We can bring countries the size of Canada do need vehicles. You know, we're not a superpower. We're a super country. We're not a superpower. But we can use the G20 and the UN, if we were able to get elected. We can use those bodies to promote our own interests, but also to promote a kind of better functioning, more innovative international governance, so that we can avoid some of the security issues that we're having to deal with now, so that they don't arise.
Mm-hmm. Paul, I should mention too to people watching the video clip that if you Google Paul Heinbecker on YouTube, you'll get a longer presentation on Paul's views and on his book. Paul, looking ahead, what are your plans?
Well, a new version of my book is coming out in the fall. I've had the bad luck of having my publisher, which was Key Porter, go bankrupt as soon as the book appeared, and another publisher, Dundurn, has picked up the book, and they will be publishing it as of September 2011. It will be back in the bookstores. So that's the first thing. Secondly, I'm going to write a book, I think, on anecdotes. My deputy, when I was in New York, Glenn Berry, was killed in a subsequent posting in Afghanistan. He was the Canadian diplomat who was in a convoy that was blown up, and he lost his life. And I remember very well at his memorial service, one of the people said of him that he had told his children that the important thing in life was at the end to have a few good stories to tell. I have some good stories to tell. I've had a long career in a lot of interesting places. I've eaten at the White House. I've been shot at playing golf. I've got lots of things that I think people would find of interest, that I at least find of interest, and my children find of interest. So I'm writing that as a series of anecdotes about a few good stories to tell.
Well, we'll look forward to that.
Thanks.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.